frontier is defined as uncharted territory by land or ocean. Those who chart that territory tell a story. The past illustrates the blueprint for the present, how things are and how they've evolved. From land to water, we are challenged to border that new frontier, a frontier the outdoorsman knows like no other. Author Gary Lewis works his way along that edge of where discoveries, failures, and achievements have written the story of the sportsman.
Yes! Yes!
From state to state, continent to continent, the stories told create the foundation of the present, and they lay the framework for the future. Through the muzzle fire and on the stone are stories from the edge.
Water is the most important thing as far as Indians are concerned, 'cause that's life.
The past is written, the present is here, and this is Frontier Unlimited. On any international hunt, the first thing is to make sure the rifles traveled well, and the guides have to know what kind of hunter they are dealing with. This necessitates a trip to the shooting range, where it all gets sorted out.
So we're going to drive across, we're going to work out 100 yards, is that right? Yep, so we'll work out 100 yards, and then we're going to start shooting inside the rifles and get all set up, and should be good.
I know you're a good shot. I know this is going to be a lot of fun, but not shooting your guide is very, very important. You get nervous?
The shooting range separates the men from the boys, and if anyone is shooting like a girl, well, the crew likes that.
Nice shooting, Ted.
We travel all the way across the world to get here, and it's essential that we shoot the rifles first before we go hunting, because we know the guns are sighted in when we leave home, but there's baggage handlers that are transferring these things from airplanes to airplanes, and we don't know how they're treating that luggage, so it's just important that we do this. This is a step that professionals take when we've got lots of people in the group.
PRNZ hunting pretty much takes people, whoever wants to come to New Zealand, and it takes them out for a hunt. So I like to show off our part of the world and our little corner of this country. So go out and shoot pretty much anything that anyone wanted to shoot, we will do our best to organise. In New Zealand, we're very, very lucky that we're allowed to hunt year-round. We've got heaps of different species that are that we're really lucky to have. None of them are actually native species, but they've been here for well over 100 years now. Like tahr and chamois, red deer, fallow, like everything that we do have here are just beautiful animals. So they need to be managed because we don't have predators here. And you guys love coming out here and hunting them, and you make a really nice trip out of it, family vacation or anything. So we like to be able to put a package together to suit anyone.
Lewis assured the guides that 11-year-old Katie had bagged more big game animals than a lot of men Lewis knows.
Somewhere up here.
We're hearing lots of big stags roaring. They're roaring back and forth across the valley. Got a couple of them roaring over here looking for girlfriends. We got a couple of them roaring on this side of the hill. And it's echoing back and forth through the wind. It's really cool.
It's windy up here, but that's the way it always is, I guess. We're in this canyon that just channels the wind, and it makes for good stalking conditions for sure.
Excited, Katie?
You ready? Sam, let's do it.
There's huge stags up there.
Katie shoots a .243 Winchester topped with Leopold scope and Warren scope mounts. The bullet, of course, is a Nosler
I
Accubon.
think I would like it if it was darker brown. Mean looking.
Now up in the high country with Pog, they would look for a stag. It didn't have to be the biggest one on the mountain, but when the roar is on, the big stags are apt to make mistakes. Katie pushed 3 rounds into the magazine, and they started into the scrub. Lewis knew from experience, this could be a hard hunt, and the terrain can beat a person before they get started. Now up in the high country with Pog, they would look for a stag. It didn't have to be the biggest one on the mountain, but when the roar is on, the big stags are apt to make mistakes. They let the wind dictate which way they would hunt. And today the wind howled down the mountains, down the river valley.
348 yards.
Buried in the ferns, they topped a ridge and found not only the stag they were looking for, but several others as well. One of the stags had lost 1/2 of its crown.
We spotted this big stag, and it bedded down on top of a little prominent point, and we were at 348 yards when I ranged it. So now we're gonna try to get to within 200 yards. It's a gorgeous animal, but it knows we're here.
Katie is the third of 4 kids. Her dad, Matthew McFarland, is one of Lewis's best friends and longtime friend of Frontier Unlimited, putting his kids in situations where they learn the lessons that big game hunters teach. McFarland believes will make them successful adults.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Nice. Okay.
The crew had the wind in their favor, but they wanted to get closer, down through another canyon and back up the other side. Partially screened away by a tree waving in the wind, Katie had an opening each time the tree bent to the side.
Nice silver stag sitting over here. He's bedded down, but looking right in our direction. We have the wind in our favor. Other than that, looks great.
Just keep ready. Keep ready. Yeah, you can wait for a minute and then just wait for some stuff.
They locked into the hillside, and Katie laid her rifle on Pog's backpack, and when the crosshair was steady, she squeezed. Lancing through space and time, the bullet took the stag in the chest and gave one reflexive kick and folded over.
Well done, Katie. Very,
Hey, we're
very
eating
well
stag
done.
steak tonight. Now the next picture
Yeah.
needs to be you holding a backstrap like this, saying backstrap for dinner.
No pressure for your brothers now, is it? Or maybe a whole lot of it. That's perfect. One shot and a tough shot too, so.
Above the crew, the clouds swept down the valley, and they fought their way through the brush to find an old stag. There's a European tradition called the last meal, where a hunter honors an old animal by giving one more bite and saying a reverent Weidmann's Heil.
What do you reckon? You like them? Look at the size of these. What do you think of that? See the little big palmated bit on the top of his antlers there.
Yeah. It's huge.
You?
I love
Yeah?
Yeah, you do.
He's quite a nice traditional shape head. Beautiful shape to him.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
That would.
it. Holy cow, I hope I get this. That guy's awesome.
That is a monster.
Yeah.
As old as he's ever gonna be.
Yep.
Okay, so Katie, you gotta give it the last meal. There you go. Yeah, you did it. Say it. There you go. Shoot like this girl.
Man, he's got a lot of stuff up top. It's cool too because it's not often that you actually see the marks on them from where they've been fighting.
Yeah, I know. That was the first thing I noticed when I walked up.
Yeah.
So, anyway, he's going there this summer.
A high five for that? He definitely deserves that.
It's the Muppets.
On the next morning, with Linda Wilson on the gun, they returned to the same mountain. Lewis had lost a hat the week before, and he was using the next big thing, a topper he'd found in Queenstown. Lewis hated that hat, but it kept the sun out of his eyes. Linda is a senator from the great state of Washington,
That's what I'm seeing too.
and one of Lewis's favorite people. Her gun bearer, of course, is her husband, Tracy Wilson. The rifle, a Nosler Model 48, shooting a .308 Winchester with a Nosler AccuBond. They kept above the deer to keep their scent from pooling in the valley. The hardest part was staying out of sight of non-target stags and females.
Spooked up a female out of this little canyon here, really close. And just looking to see if there's a stag with it. Usually if there's a female this time of year, there's a stag here somewhere.
Each stag they saw started another round of discussion. One of the hardest things was to spot a deer. Lots of times Lewis and Cameron would spot one and then another would pop up. At this time of year, the males are aggressive. Lewis says 10 times as aggressive as bull elk in the rut, and they are constantly on the move unless they have herded up with females.
I reckon he's verging on it. He's got very long main beam points, which could put him up there, but he's high silver or early gold, I would say. Do you want to sneak around the corner and have a look? Trees and some grey scrub.
So how would I shoot?
Yeah, it's 365 yards at the moment, and very settled. He says, I'm in the sunshine, I'm going to sit here.
The crew was looking for a real trophy, the biggest of the big. It's a crazy thing how in the pursuit of a trophy animal, people tend to focus so much on one animal that they can't see the others, and that's what happened for a few minutes on the ridge. While the rest of the group was focused on an extremely large animal, Linda had her sights set on a young stag. When they figured that out, she settled her crosshair. One of the critical things to remember at any distance for a long shot, either uphill or down, the hunter should take a lower hold. It's hard to communicate in the heat of the moment, but Linda knew what to do. Because of the angle, she held her crosshair a little lower than she otherwise would have at 400 yards.
You hit him, but he's up.
On the slopes of Makarora River Valley, Linda Wilson had her red stag.
Wow!
Right in the middle of the shoulder.
12 on this side.
They most often hunt private land in New Zealand.
I can hear a stag roaring over here. Well, let's get down.
In some cases, the herds are managed, while in other instances, the deer are feral. Lynn Hawker is a Western hunter, one of Lewis's great friends and favorite traveling companions.
Go for this one, Lynn.
It's the right size for knife handles.
Right, I know. Yeah, might as well.
He was looking for a stag he could turn into knife handles.
Yeah, it's a beautiful deer. We're watching this stag that has just come down off the hill, and we're thinking the Lynn's gonna want to go for this one. It's a nice young stag. The females are on the side of the hill here, and we think it's headed straight up to those females. We came over the top of this hill, and the first thing we saw were a small group of females and what they call a spiker, another raghorn stag. And then right away we saw like a 3.5-year-old red stag, pretty horns, nice coat, and exactly what Lynn's looking for on this hunt. And so we're making a play for it, but it's giving us the slip at the moment.
I have no idea where he was there. There's no way out. I have no idea where he went. I mean, from here you can't see it, but there's got to be a cut if he went along right above the water hole and out.
Yeah.
Because he came over right there.
He did. Maybe he was in a mission, like he wasn't.
And then those hinds came up.
Don just spotted some pigs right down here on the road right below us. And that might have been what was making the deer nervous.
No one had hunted this land in years, and it showed. They saw pigs, fallow deer, and way up on the hilltops, small bands of goats. Lynn carried a borrowed 7mm Magnum, equipped with a long suppressor.
You see the dart coming right off the bottom of where the green road starts up, and you see the dart. So it almost makes a circle there. Right between the top of the two of those, right at the top of that circle, there's one bedded there. From here, with what I've got for binoculars, I don't know, it's a stag. I'll go shoot it, I don't care.
Out in this open country, they might have to settle for a long shot.
Got several young stags over here along this hillside. Probably 12, 13 of them, just feeding on the hillside, so we're trying to pick out the best one.
The fallow deer is walking right down to the red stag. It's kind of odd to see the two of them standing next to each other. Yeah. We're gonna see if we can get in position to have Lynn take a shot at that stag.
At 400 yards, or better, the bullet would drop quite a bit. Lynn's heart rate was up, but if there was anything he was good at, it's math. Lynn missed with the first shot, but his trigonometry did not fail him the second chance.
Yeah.
Give me a little bigger target that time.
Nice shot.
Lynn didn't choose the biggest one, but instead the animal that he got excited about.
It was a heck of a long, long ways. He's definitely down over there, so it's recovery time.
Okay, well done.
We're dragging down home. That's a good shot. That's a long way away.
Yeah.
A long way away. That's a good 400 yards.
Yeah.
It's over 400 yards where you drop in.
And it just, you can tell when it's that far away too, because I mean, if you just even, your heartbeat, you can see the
Yes.
Yeah.
the crosshairs move on the game. It's like, man. So I'm sitting there trying to stop my heart.
Yeah.
Quit pumping, quit pumping. The biggest problem with the shot was we had dropped the rangefinder, so we were guessing at yardage. Figuring there's probably 400 plus out there. so, and downhill, so it's kind of hard to freehand that far away, trying to get a good prone shot to be able to squeeze one off. It was a little bit of a challenge. Finally scooted down in between a few rocks, got set up, and hit a little low on the first shot, but he stood up and let me have a good clean shot at him, and we put him away.